So Silver says, I'm just going to read from the phone since the whole comment's not up here. I'm assuming he says, if you were to become famous, every Jamaican would want to associate with you. So you are Jamaican, rep, rep. See, I have an issue with that though. I have an issue with that. Why is it that just the regular, degular person who has two Jamaican parents but just happened to be born and raised in another country gets a huge amount of pushback for not being a Jamaican and not being one of the community? But then all of a sudden, once they have a big name, once they're famous, once they're rich, once they're powerful, whatever, all of a sudden people want to come and be like, well, you need to say you're Jamaican, you need to say you're Jamaican. And that makes me want to associate with that identity even less. If people ask me, I will clarify and say my parents are Jamaican. Happy to do so. But I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I'm going to just volunteer that, yeah, I'm Jamaican. It's never going to happen. As much as I dabble into the culture or whatever, it's just never going to happen for me. I'm always going to be Canadian first, and I'll be Canadian with Jamaican ancestry. Because worst case, I know back in the day, there was this girl, oh, I'm forgetting her name now. There was a girl in high school. Her brother's name was JJ. I'm remembering her last name, but I don't want to dox them on here. Hannah. And her brother's name was JJ, and her brother and my brother were besties back in the day. Not going to say anything more about them, but I remember I was in that stage in high school where I was like, Canada's the worst, I hate this country, and I was carrying on, and Hannah looked at me. If I remember correctly, they might have been Lebanese. Hannah looked at me and she was like, you don't know what the rest of the world is like. You don't know what kind of opportunities that you have here. You don't know how good you have it in this country. And now that I see all of the tensions happening in the Middle East, and now that I'm educating myself more about different countries of the world and what's going on in those places, again, never going to say Canada's perfect. Never going to say Canada's perfect. Canada does have issues that we do need to reckon with, but I think that still Canada is one of the best countries in the world to raise children, to raise a family, and to set your child up to have a good trajectory in this life. And Hannah, people used to say things about Hannah because, her, school wasn't necessarily her thing. But, Hannah was one of the wisest people I ever knew. She really was, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, for me personally, even if one day I turn around and I get Jamaican citizenship, I promise you, I will always call myself Canadian first. I will always rep my Canadian identity before any other identity that I pack on. Because I do want to be at least a dual citizen. But I will never claim any other identity ever over Canada. Because Canada has always treated me well. And Canada loved me and treated me well even when I was nobody. And, I can even acknowledge that there's a possibility that my parents, when they sheltered me, they probably sheltered me from a lot of nonsense that was happening behind the scenes that I was maybe too young to understand. So for that, I can thank them. But still, I think Canada really set me up for success. And I will always be grateful to be a Canadian.